Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy, and you may say that mid-February isn't the right time of year for horror movies, but you'd be wrong. You fool. Now, last week I reviewed a new film called Companion about a romance gone awry, we'll say. And my guess is that while it made for some awkward viewing for some couples out there, maybe she saw her boyfriend a little too much in the movie or something, I bet for other couples it helped love bloom, because there's really nothing like a horror movie to make you say, you know, maybe my partner doesn't load the dishwasher right, but at least he doesn't do that. And here at Scary Story Guy Central, we are all about gratitude. We love that shit. So that's why I am giving you a list of 5 romance-themed horror movies that you can fire up this Valentine's Day weekend. And if one of these movies helps you gain a newfound appreciation for your partner, or perhaps helps you to realize that you should run as fast as humanly possible away from that witch demon, then please consider showing your gratitude to me by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. So without further ado, let's begin with possibly the most little-known movie on this list, a 2022 release called Significant Other. Starring Jake Lacy and Scream Queen extraordinaire Micah Monroe, Significant Other is the story of a couple who goes on a hiking trip together. And right away, my wife is like, nope, I'm already out. She hates hiking. She gets mad at me when I park too far away in a parking lot because it's like I made her go hiking. Now, I've already reviewed this movie on the channel back in the day, so I will leave a link to that in the description, but let me just sell you briefly on this movie because it's a lot of fun. Significant Other is a very tight economic movie. It's only 80 minutes, which I've long maintained is the perfect length for a horror movie. It's got a very small cast, a very well-paced story. It never drags. There's really not a dull moment here, and there are several twists and turns the plot takes that are, quite frankly, jaw-dropping. A couple sitting down to Significant Other should go in as blind as possible and try to be as open as possible because you are not prepared for where this movie takes you. The dynamic between Lacy and Monroe is really fun to watch. They absolutely feel like a real couple thrust into this nightmarish situation, making Significant Other both terrifying and hilarious in equal measure. Next, we're going to get to a movie with fewer laughs, to be sure, but a relationship dynamic that feels no less real. And this one comes to us from the master of horror himself, based on a novel from Stephen King, Gerald's Game, dropped on Netflix all the way back in 2017. Starring Carla Gugino and directed by the great Mike Flanagan, Gerald's Game is the story of a woman who gets handcuffed to a bed during sexy time with her husband, and then her husband promptly dies of a heart attack. This was long considered to be one of King's most unfilmable novels, just because so much of the development is taking place in this woman's mind. And so how do you let that unfold on screen in a way that's visually interesting? But if anyone could do it, it is Mike Flanagan. Gerald's Game is another movie with a surprising amount of twists and turns and intrigue throughout. You kind of can't believe Flanagan's holding your interest the way he does. Thematically, this is a pretty dark film. I'd say Significant Other is quite a bit more lighthearted than this one, so do be aware of that. I'd also say that in classic Stephen King fashion, you'll probably find the ending to be a bit divisive, but Flanagan's excellent direction, along with a very sympathetic performance from the always wonderful Carla Gugino, makes Gerald's Game an immensely watchable movie. Next on the list, we are kicking things all the way back to 1981 with Possession, featuring quite possibly one of the most batshit fucking crazy relationships to ever appear on screen. Possession stars Sam Neill of Jurassic Park fame and Isabelle Adjani, giving 2 of the most unhinged performances you will ever see as a couple in the midst of a divorce. And during these proceedings, Adjani's behavior becomes increasingly erratic, so much so that her estranged husband begins to suspect that demonic things are afoot. I really can't stress enough how off the rails this movie goes, more than any other film on this list for sure. I would say that Possession is not for everyone. It's actually been quite a bit since I've seen this movie, so I'll just come right out and admit that I don't remember all the ins and outs of the plot, but the one thing I will never forget is the performance of Isabelle Adjani. It's truly one of the all-time great horror movie performances. Some of her body movements, her facial expressions, you really come away from Possession being like, I just saw something special. I'd even go so far as to say something transformative, because I have seen several horror movies over the last couple of years where it's very clear that the actress has seen Possession and is channeling Isabelle Adjani very intentionally. Now, after Gerald's Game and Possession, I think it's time to get a little bit more lighthearted again, and so we will do so with Ready or Not, a horror comedy that dropped back in 2019. Ready or Not stars yet another S-tier Scream Queen, Samara Weaving, as a newlywed bride forced to take part in her in-laws' twisted family initiation ritual. Basically, they're in a giant mansion and everyone's trying to hunt her down and murder her. This is a pretty astonishing movie visually. The house looks incredible, and there's just something so visceral about a woman covered in blood and screaming while she's still in her wedding dress. There's more than a little bit of Get Out here, but I figure you've all probably seen that one, so why would I waste time recommending a movie that was nominated for Best Picture literally just within the last decade? But there are some ways in which this movie is actually even more enjoyable. It's very self-aware, it never takes itself too seriously, but there are some jaw-dropping action sequences, and there's never a dull moment. Samara Weaving has become one of my favorite horror actresses. She was brilliant in a movie from last year called Azrael that ended up in second place on my best horror movies of the year list, but this was the first time I saw her, and she absolutely tears it up in this movie. Now finally we come to the last and most recently released movie on this list, Strange Darling. Now if you've been watching my channel recently, you've already heard me talk about this. I've done a whole video on it, which I will again link to in the description. It also ended up as my number 3 favorite horror movie of 2024. In fact, it might be my personal favorite movie on this list. But Strange Darling stars Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner as a couple involved in a hookup gone wrong. Now this story is told non-linearly, meaning it starts in the middle and jumps around from scene to scene, leading to a very gripping, slow reveal of the details of the story. This was my first time seeing Kyle Gallner in a full-on starring role, and he's awesome in this, but so is Willa Fitzgerald, who was probably my personal favorite performance in Mike Flanagan's recent Fall of the House of Usher series on Netflix. Strange Darling is such a good time, guys. The story is told in an incredibly unique way. All the plot twists are genuinely unexpected and thrilling, and you do really come away from it feeling like, man, I haven't seen anything like that before. Alright, so there you have it, guys. Significant Other, Gerald's Game, Possession, Ready or Not, Strange Darling. 5 fantastic romance-themed horror movies for your Valentine's Day adventures this weekend. I hope you enjoy watching these movies and that they bring you closer together, but if you and your partner, for instance, watch Possession together and you realize you're not a great fit for each other, that's probably a win too, right? Better you figure it out now. Alright, guys, that about does it for me today, but stay tuned for more spooky content coming soon. And as always, thank you for watching this video, and here's hoping you survive to see the next one.